Good morning. This is Rick Gleason and Don King coming to you from the heartbeat of worker health and safety from the campus of the University of Washington and the Region 10 OSHA Training Center. And we're helping out in Washington, Alaska, Oregon, and Idaho. But we also have speakers sometimes from outside our particular region. And Don, tell us about our speaker today. I believe he works in Denver, Colorado.
That's correct. Our speaker today is a gentleman by the name of Christopher Goulart, and he is in Denver, Colorado with Aon Insurance Agency. And I actually know Christopher through an article he wrote in December of 2016, which I thought was an excellent article discussing items of discipline in the worksite. So I was fortunate enough to have information. I called him up, and he said he would be glad to do a podcast with us. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Christopher and have him talk to us.
Thanks, and good afternoon. So I appreciate the opportunity to engage in the podcast. I would have one request. Please call me Chris.
Okay.
I'm called for if I'm in trouble, if I've done something wrong, which unfortunately is a little too often. So please call me Chris.
Very good, Chris. Thank you.
Sure. So let me give you just a brief overview of my background. I've been in safety for about 20 years, give or take a little bit. I've been in the consulting field for probably 17 out of those 20 years. And that's, being a consultant has given me an opportunity to work with probably hundreds of different clients, thousands of locations. I've had the opportunity to consult on 5 different continents. And the background that I've got has really made me appreciate the profound importance that safety really has, and the profound difference that a well-managed and well-run safety process can make with an organization. The reality is, I don't find a lot of organizations that think they have a poor safety process, but when you get down to brass tacks, there does seem to be a lot of difference in the way safety is managed and administered. And as a consultant, I've really been very blessed to have the chance to interact and interface with companies that truly do desire to make their workplaces safer. And hopefully my background and a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today can provide people with just some perspectives and maybe some points of view that they haven't considered when it comes to safety management. So thank you again for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to this podcast.
Hey, Chris, hey, this is great. And we were very interested in your article that we mentioned in the ASSE Professional Safety. And the title was Corrective Actions, Strengthening Safety by Addressing At-Risk Behavior. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So the genesis of this article probably goes back 4 or 5 years. I found, as I worked with organizations to try to help them really optimize their safety systems, the objective that I always had was to try to get safety to be something that was looked at very positively. And the way to do that is, first of all, to understand what are the fundamental drivers of safety. And when you look at safety, it's really driven by failure avoidance. We measure success in safety by how few things we do wrong. What's the basic measure? It's trying to reduce the frequency of injuries or trying to reduce their severity. And unfortunately, when an organization tries to manage something by avoiding failure, it really doesn't have great measures of success. So our approach was to try to engage organizations in a paradigm shift where when people accomplish things in safety, those things could be identified, noted, recognized, and ultimately reinforced. But it always brought us back to the basic question of attempting to recognize safety and attempting to recognize people for being safe makes a lot of sense, but it still leaves the unanswered question, how do we approach it when we have situations where employees clearly violate a known safety rule, one where training has been provided and documented, standards are presented and they're very clear, and yet still an employee makes a decision to put themselves or other in harm's way in violation of a known policy. And it was this real conundrum of wanting to keep safety positive, yet at the same time acknowledging that there have to be standards that are met and followed, is what led to really getting into the background of this article.
Okay, very good. So would you say, Chris, in your findings out there that everybody feels a little differently on what discipline really means in their operations?
I would say that this occurs on a few different levels. First of all, the perception of what is discipline, what is accountability, what is punishment. There really isn't a standard belief system on what those are. And there also really isn't a standard belief on when or how they should be applied. And that was the fundamental question that this article was trying to answer was, first and foremost, let's delineate the situations where discipline, accountability, coaching are appropriate. But even stepping back a second, let's really define what they are. And so that meant, looking beyond safety into the realm of human resources, psychology, employee management, and really trying to refine these definitions and ensure that we can overlay functional definitions into the framework of safety management. And then number two, try to provide some guidance as to when they should or should not be applied.
That makes sense. So realistically, you're trying to figure out where companies can understand the difference between discipline and punishment, and one very bad connotation on punishment, and discipline's more of a positive approach if folks can work with it from that perspective.
Correct. And really the basic premise and the thing that I'd really like to get across in this message is that if we operate from the premise that, number one, if no employer gets up in the morning and says, you know what, today I'm going to be a terrible human being. I'm going to be an oxygen thief. I'm going to go to work late. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to get in trouble if I can. And if at all possible, I'm going to get hurt. Nobody initiates their day. Nobody thinks like that. And yet the reality is we do have employees who engage in unsafe behaviors and do unsafe things that create risk and very often can lead to an injury. So if we operate from that paradigm that nobody wants to get hurt, then it becomes a little bit more straightforward. How do we apply discipline and accountability? And in what venue does it make sense to use those different approaches? So at the outset of this article, one of the things that I tried to make very clear is that although there clearly are times when punishment is needed, or when we want to use discipline, which is giving an employee notification that they've done something that is inappropriate and needs to be corrected, the one thing that we always have to avoid is blame. And I just want to take a sec to really reinforce this point. Very often in safety, I've reviewed, over my career, I've probably reviewed thousands of incident reports. And so often when you look at an incident report where an employee's been hurt, you can tell from the root cause analysis and the corrective actions that ultimately the employee is being blamed for an unsafe action. And what I wanted to try to communicate in this article is that blame is really never going to be helpful, because blame creates an obfuscation when you're trying to investigate an incident. If you blame an employee, you no longer have to think systemically about what may have caused risk, why the employee may have done something unsafe, and now you've got an injury report that really comes up short. So ultimately, in this article, I'm trying to delineate how do you respond to unsafe acts to manage safety.
Got it. It seems like, as I would read a lot of those accident reports, what could have been done to have prevented this accident? Employees should have been more careful. And that doesn't necessarily help us in the underlying root causes as far as how to prevent that accident in the future.
No, and the reality is, when you really look at trying to get an organization to have a very strong safety process, one of the fundamentals is you always have to engage in systems level thinking and really understand that employee unsafe behaviors is nothing more than the symptomatic manifestation of a systemic problem. In other words, if employees are acting unsafely, by the time they get hurt, it's not going to be the first time they've done something unsafe. And you need to look at the systems of the workplace that may not only allow unsafe behaviors to occur, but quite probably are even reinforcing some of those unsafe behaviors.
I was young and feisty, never did things by the book. Just let me get my toolbox, and I'll take myself a look. I climbed up on the dozer with my mechanic's pride. Said, you can keep it running, friend, while I poke around inside. Shake hands with danger, meet a guy you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety, now they call me Three-Finger Joe. Though I learned a lesson, I forgot it soon enough. The nicks and burns and scratches showed the young ones I was tough. Till another morning, I was grinding on some steel. My other hand got careless and fed my skin into the wheel. Shake hands with danger, step right up and say hello. Grinding wheels and metal, I what made me Three-Finger Joe. I've seen mechanics burning, and I've seen them take a fall just to save themselves a minute, and I've seen them lose it all. I've watched them courting trouble, seen them take a chance and lose. They get careless for a moment, spend a lifetime with the blues. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger and some friends I used to know. Compared to them, I'm lucky to be just Three-Finger Joe.